Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Erin from the membership team at Diabetes Australia, and we're joined today by Rebecca McPhee of Beck McPhee, our resident dietitian and health coach. Today is a fairly informal Q&A. You may have been to one of our health hours before. This is number 4, our fortnightly health hours, where you can ask questions related to your diabetes management. Some of them in the past have had topics. This one is just free for all. People can ask kind of whatever they want. I will start to record the session in a minute or so, in case we do want to put it onto the forum. But yeah, your mics and cameras are off anyway, so there's no security issues there. Once I've clicked recording, I will then be reading out the acknowledgement to country, and then I'll hand over to Beck, and you guys can start asking your questions via the Q&A section. If you're not able to see the Q&A section, you can add your question to the chat if you want, but Q&A is preferred. Alrighty. Diabetes Australia acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners and custodians of this country. We pay the utmost respect to them, their cultures, and to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Diabetes Australia is committed to improving health outcomes for all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people affected by diabetes and those at risk. All right, I'll hand over to you, Beck.
Thanks, Erin. Hello, everyone. And if you want to show your lovely faces, please feel free to put your camera on. It'd be nice to see everyone. And like Erin said, this is a fairly informal hour. My first question, I'm curious, and then you can use the Q&A, is what type of diabetes are you living with? And even maybe you can put how many years you've had it. It'd be really nice to find out more about you guys. And while I may be an expert, well, there's no such thing as an expert really, but whilst I devote my career to nutrition, there's so much that you guys know as well. So this question and answer session is also about you providing your tips and ideas, just as we do on the forum, because I always learn from members. So if anyone wants to type in a Q&A or chat what type of diabetes they have, be really interesting to know. And also, and excuse, you may hear some background noise. Well, it's still school holidays. My 4-year-old hasn't started school yet, so she's next to me with her headphones on, but she has a little cold, so she's sniffing and snorting. So excuse any background noise. Here we go. Let's have a look.
Oh, sorry, it's just me. Maybe asking
a question.
You. I just want to double.
You want to ask a question?
It looks as though I need to allow camera and mic for each person individually, and then you'll be able to add it on. So rather than me doing that, if 90% of you don't want, maybe just put a little chat to me, and I can let you turn it on if you have any desire to.
Here's Helen. Helen's had type 2 diabetes for 30 years. My goodness, you've seen a lot of changes. And even as a dietitian, I started just over 20 years ago. And yeah, things are changing for the better. But it still can be quite confusing and a lot of conflicting information. So that's why we have these health hours as well, just to iron out any queries or questions. And if there's something I don't know, I'll definitely get back to you. Let's have a look here. Hi, Beck. I'm type 1. This is Deb. And I follow a reasonably low carb diet. I have a good handle on dosing with carbs, but I'm struggling with how to dose for protein and fat. Yeah, Deb, thank you. That's a really good point. And, you know, in general, we say that fat and protein don't impact blood glucose levels, but they do, depending on the portion. And everyone is different with how much they can tolerate. And so most of the time, people with type 1 diabetes, if they're having just a pure protein meal, they won't give themselves insulin. However, there will be a point where you will need to. And there's no finite number as such. Everyone is slightly different. So I'd be interested to know, Deb, if there are times where you have had a protein and fat meal, what you do with that and has it work for you. Certainly, I know with seeing a diabetes educator, they can also really help you with tinkering with the insulin to know what you need. But again, it's not a one size fits all. It can be very tricky. So, years ago, over 20 years ago, and Helen probably knows this from 30 years ago, we used to say, okay, free foods are protein and fat. They don't affect blood glucose levels compared to the carbs, but there is a point where they do. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to tap into the research. I'd like to have a look at if there's a specific number, and anyone in this chat to type in if they've had any experience with that. Alison, I'm not a question. Oh, I remember Alison must have, but I'm type 1 and have been so for 54 years next week. Wow, that's massive. What changes over time? Alison, having type 1 diabetes, an answer to Deb, have you found protein in fact to affect your blood glucose levels, and do you have any tips? Because protein and fat slow down blood glucose levels. So to give you an idea, I've had patients or clients in the past where they will have X amount of insulin or units of insulin for the carbs they're carb counting. However, when there's a lot of fat and protein, it slows it down and it actually might cause a hypo. You may not need as much insulin, for example, or the opposite. Maybe you're not counting for the protein and fat, and maybe that's also causing the sugars to go up. So it really depends on how much you're having, what type of meal you're having, and just you individually. So it's not really a black and white answer, but I am going to have a look into the research to see if there's any sort of formula we could follow, just as we do with carb counting. Are there any questions, Erin? Let's focus on maybe the type 1 diabetes. Are there any questions from anyone with type 1 diabetes? You've got some emails.
We have received a few emails and I think a couple of comments on the forum. I'm not sure if any of them. One of them does refer to insulin, so I might read out Jennifer's question.
Okay.
She's written, I keep getting hypos around 2 to 3 in the morning. I've adjusted my basal, if that's how you pronounce it, insulin, reduced, so I have a high reading before bed, but it still happens. I have booked an appointment with my diabetes educator next week, but any tips now would be great. Thank you.
So those in the chat who have got type 1 diabetes, thank you, Jennifer, for your question. Have you found that you've ever experienced morning hypos? It's a very common one, and well done for Jennifer. The first thing, I mean, I'm not a diabetes educator, so my answers will usually be food focused, but just from my experience, and I think it's great that you've booked in to see a diabetes educator because 100% important. But running your sugars a bit higher before you go to bed by changing your basal will be one strategy, but you can see you're still having hypos. So there are a couple of little factors that can increase the risk of hypos. So if you haven't really eaten before, so you've had your dinner and then nothing else, if your blood glucose levels are less than 7 before bed, a little snack can help, and that could be a low GI, so some sort of carb/protein snack can help. So that could be something like Greek yogurt with maybe a few berries, or maybe a glass of milk, or maybe a cracker with some cheese. So you can see you've got the protein and the carbs together to slow down that digestion. And for some people, that snack can help, particularly if your blood sugars are less than 7. So that can help. The other factors that can affect how your body's responding in the early morning is activity. So was there exercise just before you went to bed, but also bedroom activity, if you know what I mean? That can, I've had many people know that if you look at the pattern, oh, that was my daughter yawning, sorry. That can increase the risk of a hypo because it's activity. The other thing can be heat. So I'm in Perth and the weather has been really hot, really, really, really hot. So the heat, what can happen is the heat can increase the speed in which the insulin is absorbed because your blood vessels dilate, so the insulin's absorbed quicker. So maybe on hot nights, is there a difference in temperature that could cause hypos? The other one is alcohol. People often say, oh, wouldn't alcohol increase sugars because there's carbs in it? No, not at all. Unless it's a syrupy dessert wine or you've got Coca-Cola with your spirit, alcohol can reduce blood sugar levels and put you into a hypo state. And when you think about it, it takes, so what tends to happen is the liver, the alcohol prevents or slows the liver from breaking the glucose down and going into your bloodstream. So it slows down that ability to release glucose in the bloodstream. So with alcohol, if you have one alcoholic drink, it takes the liver about an hour to break it down. So if you imagine if you had just 2 innocent glasses of wine, and remember, these are standard drinks. And I've said this before for anyone who've done my chats, bless my mother, her glasses of wine, she pours them very big and calls that a glass. And she does not believe that there is 7 to 9 standard drinks in a bottle. She thinks there's 4. So if you've got a portion distortion issue, maybe you've had just one glass of wine, it may be 3 glasses, and that takes the liver 3 hours to break down. And so the liver's job is to break down that poison. It sees it as poison. But what happens is the alcohol can inhibit the liver's ability, okay, to release the glucose in your bloodstream. So alcohol can also put you into a hypo state. So I'm just thinking what else. They're the main ones, and illness as well. So we know that being sick can either make your sugars go up or down. Has anyone else experienced the nighttime hypo or early morning hypos? Have those sort of tips helped you, or have you got any other ideas? They can be frightening too, especially if you're on your own. And I say one hypo too many. So as soon as there's a bit of a pattern happening, I think it's great that Jennifer is booked in to see the diabetes educator. But hopefully, Jennifer, a couple of those tips. And I've said this before, but keeping a diary, and it's not just food, it's, insulin, how much you're giving yourself, other factors such as stress, illness, weather, alcohol. Yep. Keeping that in a diary to have a look at patterns, and those patterns then take those to the doctor or the diabetes educator, so then you can work it out yourself. And I say you can't see yourself with your own eyeballs. Sometimes it takes an outsider to be able to review what's going on, to sort of work out what the patterns are. And unfortunately, that's the wonderful world of diabetes. Sometimes there's not a black and white answer, but I'm hoping with seeing the diabetes educator, you'll be able to work something out.
Just on that, Beck, I'm not saying that's the case for many people living with diabetes or even any of them, but me certainly. You definitely, when you're writing down what you've eaten that day, you always just assume that it's less than what it actually has, especially if you're doing it, retrospectively, not kind of as you're looking at what you're about to eat or drink. Yeah,
absolutely. I call it calorie amnesia or carbohydrate amnesia. And years ago, you take your diary to the dietitian, and who's going to really want to say what they've eaten, and it can be a little bit intimidating. So use a diary as a way of being a detective rather than red penning it, so to speak. We all overconsume, myself included. We all indulge. So don't be worried about that feeling of I've had too much. Everyone does it. There's no such thing as a perfect person, but use that diary. It's one of the first things when a member has a question and they're not really sure, I'm not sure what's going on in your life. So that's the best thing to do, is to keep a diary and work out those patterns. It's the same with blood glucose levels, not to think of it as a shameful thing if you're getting highs all the time or too many lows. It's just a number. Okay. And you're not a number. You're a person living with diabetes, but we use those numbers to work out what's going on. So then you can control the diabetes rather than diabetes control you. Any other questions or comments from people? But that's the thing, Deb, with the protein and fat, I'd be really curious, and you can email me maybe a diary of the different types of meals you've had and the sugar readings and the insulin, because until I can see it, excuse me. Mama. Yep. Until I see it, I'm not really sure what's going on. But please, Deb, happy for you to keep a diary and email it to me. That'd be great. And then we can use that as a little case study, if you don't mind. Be really good to look at. any other questions or comments, or even tips that what I love to hear as well in the members forum is for people to say, hey, I have this problem and this is how I worked it out. That's another thing you can put in the chat. New post, here we go. Thanks, we'll do. Oh yeah, thank you, Deb. I'd love to really help. Yeah.
Another question we had, I think it was by email.
Yeah.
It's kind of relevant
Yes,
to what we were saying in terms of the amnesia. A lady, a man named John rather, asked, do you need to snack? I suppose just thinking about people snacking too much, but people maybe thinking they shouldn't as well.
To snack or not to snack, that's the question. And look, years ago when I first started, and I'm sure those who've had diabetes for a few years, you'd put on a carbohydrate exchange plan and you'd have your little snack at morning and afternoon tea. No, you don't have to snack. So there are pros and cons to it. So the first thing is that if you've got a balanced meal at breakfast, lunch and dinner, if you've got enough protein, bit of low GI carb, some good fats, snacks should be very basic and you should be satisfied with something very small, like a handful of nuts or a piece of fruit. Now, if you find that that's not enough and you're absolutely starving and your meals are balanced, have a think about, is it head hunger? Is it more psychological than physiological hunger? Is your tummy grumbling? And if it is, your body needs more, correct? The other thing is snacks can be good because it can top up your nutrient intake in terms of it can help you meet your daily nutritional needs. So if you've reduced your carbs at meals and let's say you've got at breakfast, lunch and dinner some type of starchy carb, but small amount, there's no room for fruit in the day, and we do need at least 2 serves of fruit in the day because of all the good the benefits you get from it, from antioxidants and fibre, etc. So it can help you meet your daily nutritional requirements, but you don't have to. I'm not a big snacker. For me, I have quite a protein-rich breakfast and lunch, but if there's a big gap between morning and afternoon, definitely I'll have one, but also role modeling for my 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old. So we'll have like a little snack that she helps me prepare, but it's always something simple. Yeah, and for those with type 1 diabetes, if you're on a pump, you can factor in a carb snack. If you're on injections and you want a snack, go for something that's 0 carbohydrate. You could have like nuts or something like that, and then you don't have to factor in the insulin. But no, John, you don't have to, but they're there for a reason. And definitely, and also it's looking at balanced as well. If you, I don't know about you guys, but if I had a snack such as rice crackers, if I was hungry, I could eat the whole packet. So, you know, trying to balance it out and think, okay, if I want something carby, what sort of protein can I put on top of good fats to slow that down? So you might have a couple of crackers with 100% nut butter or avocado or cheese, and that will fill you up. Hopefully that helps, John. And we always have in the forum, you've got access to resources. I've got a whole heap of snack ideas, definitely to help. Deb, I always run high after breakfast and my carb insulin ratio is the greatest for this meal. The thing I found that helps is if I do a 30-minute walk immediately after breakfast. Exercise as medicine works for me. Beautiful. Thanks so much, Deb. Absolutely 100%. And it's all relative. I've seen, and I've mentioned in a previous webinar before, that I had a client who was limited with their mobility. They couldn't even do a fabulous 30 minutes that you're doing, Deb. But she found that when she went and hung the washing out, she'd get highs after dinner and she'd modified the carb. She thought the ratio was good, inch to carb ratio. But when she hung the washing out, she'd always hang 1 or 2 of washing out. That would help her blood glucose levels because of it's a bit of resistance training, really. You're putting your arms up and down, and for her that worked. So thanks for including that, Deb, because sometimes people think they have to keep cutting the food or looking at the food, but activity is a fantastic way of really modifying those blood sugars, particularly if you find you run higher in the morning. You can get the dawn phenomenon where glucose is released as well early morning, and you can get that high despite what you're having at breakfast. So exercise is a really good, very, very good tip. And it's nothing worse. People have said to me, you know, you're doing well with your diet and you wake up and you get this reading and it just puts you down for the whole day. Never despair, but I think it's good if you can do that bit of exercise or work out a way to lower them, then you can start the day with a good reading. But remember, they're just numbers, and don't be disheartened if it's always happening. There's always a reason. That's where we have to be that detective. Thanks, Deb. Can I say, obviously, Alison, can I say that last year I did the AusDaphne course run by DA, which has taught me so much more about keeping myself well. Much of what Rebecca has been speaking about was covered in that course. Yeah, thank you so much, Alison. Definitely, it's one thing I should keep mentioning, but doing the Daphne course really helps you get a bit more of a black and white handle on diabetes. This is for type 1 diabetes. Absolutely, Alison. And sometimes having a refresher as well. So I've done, I used to do in the UK like a modified version of Daphne for people who had done it, and they'd come back and we do just a refresher course. And for people living with diabetes for so many years, maybe like 54 years, would always come out thinking, there's something new that I've learned, or it's reminded me about something. So definitely courses really can help with that bit of extra knowledge, and things do change. Things really do change over the years for the better. We're getting more savvy with knowing about how the body responds to insulin, and also the role of diet. Thanks, Alison. That's a really, really good point. How did people go over the Christmas period? Did people find it's always Christmas is always notorious for people go, I fall off the wagon, and then I start in January, and then et cetera, and put a lot of pressure with health goals in January or February. How did people go through the Christmas period? Do you find that not an issue, or did you find this year easier or more difficult?
Mama.
I'm going to put myself on mute.
I know that I remember it being talked about. I can't remember if it was internally or at an event before we went away, and it was, I think maybe it might have been the first one of these, and you were talking about having, like, thinking about something you really want that day. So you might have the pavlova that your mum makes or whatever. But I think I then kind of forgot about that, and I've come back and I'm like, oh no, I think I just had 3 or 4 things that I wanted at each of the gatherings instead of one. Oh well.
It happens, especially when you've got, Christmas is a time of celebration. And I always say, if you're celebrating on Christmas Day and you do have the pavlova, 2 serves, Auntie Joan's Christmas cake, et cetera, it's one day. It doesn't matter. Unfortunately, with diabetes, and I'm sure you'll agree, sometimes it might take a while to get your levels back to normal, but you're all human and you're supposed to enjoy it. But it's that leftovers and continuing to indulge where the issue can be. Yeah, Deb, I spent a lot of time dosing for multiple courses, up to 3 times for the meal. That can be really frustrating too, where you're spending a lot of time figuring out when the entree's coming, when the dessert's coming, how much, what the carbs are. But you're all over it, Deb. Well, it's not easy when you're dosing. Yep, especially when it's got that protein and fat. And for parties, it might be just a guesstimate and do the best you can, rather than being, if you're more of a routine person, I have the standard, maybe the 2 breakfasts, and I alternate it in the week, similar lunches every day. So if you've got a bit of a pattern, that can be easier. But with parties, it can be hard, especially if you're not catering for it. Any other comments? This is my little Sophia. Clearly, she doesn't have my hair. She has Dad's hair. Any other questions? It suits her personality. She's very sassy.
We've had a couple more through via email, probably.
Yep.
Both. The first one's more related to food, I suppose. I was told to cook and then cool the carbs that I eat. Why is this? Regards, Phil.
Thank you, Phil. So cooking and cooling your carbs, that could be potato, rice or pasta, increases the type of starch called resistant starch. And the whole process is called starch retrogradation. I think starch retrogradation, yes. And the benefits are that resistant starch resists the body's ability to digest carbohydrates that passes through the intestine. And so why that's good is it can help slow down that breakdown of carbs to glucose in the blood. So it will reduce. So you get less of an effect. And the other thing is we've all heard about good and bad bacteria. So resistant starch is a prebiotic and it's fuel for your good bacteria in your gut. So we have good and bad bacteria. And the problem is when there's an imbalance. So we want more of that good bacteria. So that good bacteria is going to feed off that resistant starch. Okay. And that's, people go, well, why is that good? It's their number one energy source, and when they do, they produce short chain fatty acids. Not to get too technical, but short chain fatty acids such as butyrate acid can help with reducing inflammation in the gut. So we talk about gut health. I'm sure you've all read, it tends to be a bit of an on-trend thing at the moment about prebiotics, probiotics, but getting it naturally through the diet makes sense, and it just naturally helps with that balance of good and bad bacteria. The good bacteria need something; they need a fuel, so they're going to use that resistant starch as fuel. And there is some research that suggests that, when I said it helps reduce inflammation in the gut, there is some research that's saying that an increase in resistant starch can help reduce inflammatory bowel disease. So it's really exciting, this whole new world. And I'm still learning as a dietitian. When I came out of university, we didn't really talk or know so much about gut health and the gut and the brain, the links, the relationship between the gut and the brain. So yeah, resistant starch is very good. For example, if you've got a humble spud, you might be using charisma potatoes, which are a lower GI. They're not low carb. They're not low GI, but they're lower GI. But if you're cooking them and cooling them, yep, you're making a potato salad. That's one way of doing it. Or if you're cooking rice or pasta and then you're cooling it and then you're reheating it, that's another way of increasing that resistant starch. It can increase by almost double. I read some research not long ago. I think it was pasta, it doubled the amount of resistant starch. So you can see how you don't have to buy fancy supplements or anything. If you're doing things in the diet naturally, that's when you're going to get the best bang for your buck. Hopefully that answers the question for, what was their name? Phil.
Sorry, it was from Phil, yeah.
Oh, here we go, Deb. Potato salad is much kinder to me than roast or mash with blood glucose management. Oh, well, we're thinking the same, Deb. Absolutely. Potato salad because you're cooking and then you're cooling. So isn't it nice that, years ago it was always, hopefully you didn't experience that, but it was the bad carbs. I used to work with a beautiful endocrinologist who, well-meaning would say, cut all potatoes out, cut all bread out, cut all carbs out. And people would come to me in tears. So I have to do a bit of a therapy session for the first 10 minutes, but then say, you know what, you can. And just as Deb said, there are ways of being able to have those carbs in your diet. It just makes sneaky. But the potato salad, when you think about it as well, you've got the carb, right? And you've increased that resistant starch by cooking and cooling. Then you add the dressing, right? So if you're using sour cream, it's fat. It's going to slow that breakdown. Now, I have a recipe, which I should post for you guys. It's a high protein potato salad recipe. So what I get, and bear with me, because not everyone likes cottage cheese, but you get cottage cheese and you blend it with a bar mix, put a bit of lemon juice, maybe a bit of dill, a bit of mustard if you want, blend it up. That can be the dressing for the potato. So you've increased the protein. Cottage cheese is very high in protein. And you're mixing that with the potato, that can really slow things down. And just as Deb said, much better outcome with potato salad than your mash or your roast. 100%. If you like your mash, one way of slowing it down is you could use the charisma potatoes, maybe use a bit of fat, like a little bit of olive oil, drizzle olive oil in it, or a little bit of yogurt is another way as well. But these are all little tricks, so you don't have to cut out, unless you've got an allergy, I don't recommend you have to cut out any food groups. Yep, it's just working with it. Same with pasta. Pasta is actually low GI, regardless of being it white or brown. Pasta is low GI, and you can get away with more pasta than you can with rice. I've seen, just clinically speaking, with members looking at their food diaries, and just watching the portion. Caution. Definitely. And back to gut health this month, because I write all the meal plans, the theme is good gut health. So what I've tried to do in the recipes is to use certain foods to promote good gut health. So every month there will be a different meal plan with a different theme. So stay tuned with that. Any other points?
Oh, just
Do
on
people-
that, mash is also
Yeah.
mash is definitely my favorite, but maybe I'll add some of those extra bits and less fatty stuff like butter or salt.
And look, you know, I'd much prefer you to have a small scoop of mash with butter than a big scoop of mash with skim milk or something. Like, you know, food is flavor. So you can have your mash, put some butter in it. Don't be frightened of butter. Okay. And just go for a smaller portion. It's the same with ice cream. I'd much prefer someone to have a scoop of proper gelato than 2 scoops of low-fat ice cream. You know, like the minute people take fat out, they put more sugar in there or whatever. So I grew up on mash. I can't eat it because I had too much of it. Bless my mum. It's the Irish coming out in it, but you know, my family do suffer. I don't cook it much because I'm sort of over it. But I'll try to do potato salads and a potato rosti. You know, you do the you grate the potato with herb and put herbs, grated veg, and you can pan fry them. They're quite nice too. So yeah, it's quite a different way of eating the mash. Any other questions? Anyone else have any questions? Whether, you know, those who've got type 2 diabetes, anything you're finding frustrating? And for those, if you're not really feeling comfortable with asking questions, again, get on that members forum. I've had people individually email me and I respond to you. That's what this whole United membership program is about. You, right? It's a play on words. It's about you, about us coming together and working as a team. And so use all the different ways of communicating for us to help you. So I'm on the forum. I check in every day and I check out if there's anything related to nutrition. I answer everyone as much as I can. I try to make it as personal as I can. But as Deb's question before, if you send me, you can personally send me an overview of your diet, then I'll be able to be even more laser focused to give you more of a black and white answer. Any other questions or comments about your diabetes? Do people have a really good diabetes team? That's a really important point. A diabetes educator, dietitian, endocrinologist. Do people feel that they've got a good team around them? So when they've got some questions or having a little bit of trouble, they can tap into that resource. Because if you're finding that hard, you can always use health professionals from Diabetes Australia. That's also a resource that we provide, and we can do a phone call. So we've got experts at the end of the phone who can help you as well. So never struggle alone.
Yeah, it's as easy as you can call the 1-800 number if you want to be. You may not be able to. Yeah, you probably get a call back, but you can send an email to United Out, and I create a case, and usually someone will call you back the same day. Obviously, depending on what time you reach out to us, but within a couple of business days, you call or email, whatever you want.
It's so important because you all live with diabetes 24/7. You know, if I can say this, often people who don't have diabetes don't always understand what you're going through. And so to have an outsider hear what you have to say, any questions, I think can be really, it's an important part of your diabetes management. And in the United program, we don't just talk about, you know, food and nutrition and exercise and medication. We also talk about your emotional and mental health as well, making sure that you are able to cope. We all go through you know, life's like a roller coaster ride, isn't it? So it's important to have that support with whatever you're going through. And if the health professional is not the one to give you that advice, they will direct you into the right, whether it's a podiatrist or a counsellor or a physiotherapist, they will point you in the right direction. Are there any more questions there, Erin?
I think there's something in the Q&A. And then I've got one left from email for later on, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. I'm just looking, is there a Q&A? I can't see another question. Oh, yes, new post. Here we go. Oh, Deb, pretty good team, but I find it difficult to find a dietitian who understands type 1 especially. Yeah, that can be hard, especially if they're not a diabetes dietitian, so to speak, if it's just, a general dietitian like a GP, or nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's really important to not just have your diabetes educator, but have a diabetes dietitian, definitely. Who can understand, like you're saying with the protein and fat, really be laser focused with advice on what's going on there. Yep. And I guess the best people to ask would be your diabetes educator or endocrinologist. They usually have connections with diabetes dietitians, but making sure they understand type 1, not just type 2. Yep, agreed.
Okay, one last question that was sent via email, I believe, from Jan. She's written here, most advice is about losing weight, but I have actually been asked to put on weight. My doctor said that 5 kilos would be a good goal to achieve. I have type 2 diabetes and have always been very lean. I tidied up my diet when I was diagnosed and lost weight. Any tips would be great.
No, that's an interesting point. It's a small percentage of people who experience that, and it can be frustrating for people because there's always a focus on weight loss for some people, but not everyone. But what we want to do there is making sure that we don't just increase any type of food, particularly carbohydrates, because as you know, it will affect the sugars. So the first thing I would say, and not that I haven't seen your diary, and I'd be happy to look at it again, is are you eating enough? So are you eating enough carbohydrate? That's the first question. But the second part to putting on weight, and it can be stressful and just as hard to put on weight as it is to lose weight. Sounds crazy, but it's true. And 5 kilos is, a big goal. I'd just break it down into chunks and aim for 1 kilo at a time. But the sort of way of eating to help put on weight is fortifying the foods you currently eat through fat and protein. So good fats mainly. So, for example, if you've got, let's say you're having porridge in the morning, rather than just having oats and milk, make a high protein milk. So high protein milk, a very cheap way is to add milk powder to your milk, and that doubles the protein. So you're fortifying that porridge of what you've eaten. Or if you're having toast with eggs in the morning, add 2 eggs, not 1. Add some fat, so add some avocado or a bit of butter to your toast. With snacks, it's adding fat again, so it might be nuts or nut butter or avocado, and making sure that your meals there is enough protein, and cooking in olive oil. Don't be frightened of the good fats. It'll actually improve your heart health. It's higher in calories, but it's not going to affect your heart health. So be generous with olive oil, for example. You might pan fry rather than grill. So it's almost the opposite to when we're talking about losing weight. And for some people, they may need a supplement, so a protein drink to have to top up those calories. But like I said, that old-fashioned way of making high protein milk with milk powder and milk. So you're doing milk and milk powder, mixing it up. I can send the recipe, is doubling your protein intake and not impacting those blood glucose levels. But yeah, so like I said, are you eating enough? Because sometimes people cut too much of the carbs down. So are you eating enough? Adding fat and good fat and protein to each meal and snack. So sometimes you might need to have a bit more of those snacks. That's where snacks might work for you because you're not getting enough at meal times. And then for some, it may be a supplement to add if all those things are not working. If you've always been naturally lean, it's just accepting that. And I think, yeah, losing extra weight when you're diagnosed, it's just maybe trying to make up for the weight you've lost rather than gaining even more. That's going to be unrealistic for someone who's always very lean. The same with someone who's always been quite a bigger person, is being realistic with what body weight would be best. And newsflash, we're actually shying away from BMI. So we're trying to factor in not just your weight and height. Who wants sneezing? So looking at not just calculating your BMI, it's also looking at your blood. Have your bloods improved by changing your diet? Your muscle mass, you may have always been a muscular person, so there's no point BMI, maybe looking at waist circumference. There's different ways of measuring success. So the BMI is there as a reference. I call it a reference, not as an absolute. And I was trained years ago for it to be an absolute, but we're evolving and we're noticing that there needs to be a shift into other ways of measuring health. Yeah. Deb, have you heard of allulose and what do you think of it as a sugar substitute? Do you know? No, I have not heard of that one. Deb, can you give me a bit more info? So is that, obviously it's going to be from a plant like cellulose, it's going to be coming from a plant, and OSC means sugar. So it's going to be very natural. Can you tell me a little bit more? That's an interesting, I've never heard of that before. Is that being put into products? Because there's a lot of different types, like erythritol, there's stevia, there's all sorts of sugar substitutes. At the mannitol, anything old is sugar alcohol, but ose is a type of sugar, so it's probably a natural one.
On
With
that
sugar
note, are
substitutes,
there...
yeah,
Oh, sorry, go on.
that's okay. Are you going to say, are there better sugars than others?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, because I don't really know about it. Are there ones that you're not supposed to consume on their own and you have to put into a drink or food, and then others you can just kind of
Some
have in
some you can cook with.
coffee?
I mean, I don't know if that comes from monk fruit. Is that because there's monk fruit as well? Monk fruit is another type of substitute. So I'll just wait and see what Deb says. But yeah, a lot of the new sweeteners on the market, like monk fruit, you've got stevia. There's so many. I'm just trying to remember the names, but you can use them in cooking. You can use them in tea and coffee. Not a problem at all. Let's have a look here. What is she saying? It's different from monk fruit. It's sort of mentioned as the newest best sugar substitute. All right, let me write it down and I'll have a look. I'll research that. Thank you, Deb. There is so many sugar substitutes on the market now, and just to be careful with them. Often the ones that are advertised are trying to sell a product, but in moderation. If you're having just a small amount of sweetness, for example, like pure maple syrup or low GI honey, I don't mind people using that. The thing with sugar substitutes, sometimes people think they can have, it gives them permission to have more sweet things, for example. So if you're making a banana bread with a sugar substitute, so it's almost carb-free, it doesn't mean we should be eating banana bread every day. I'd much prefer someone to make banana bread once a week with, maybe my golden rule is no more than half a cup, quarter to half cup of some sort of sugar, whether it's brown sugar, coconut sugar, pure maple syrup or honey. But if you can eat banana bread less often, but using just a natural sweetener, I'd much prefer that. So they're there for a reason. Some people find, I've got one client who likes a hot chocolate at night. I put her onto a cup of milk with some pure cocoa, and she doesn't want to add any more carbs, so she puts a little bit of stevia in there. That's not a problem, okay? But just treat sugar substitutes as normal sugar. Just because they might be calorie-free or reduced carbs doesn't mean we have them more often. And another reason why is because we don't know enough research behind them. So we've gone from artificial sweeteners. Remember the good old Diet Coke ads and all that? We've gone from more artificial sweeteners now to more of the natural sweeteners that are coming from all sorts of plants, including the cactus. But we don't know enough about them yet. So I just play caution to the wind and use them in small amounts. But if you like a drizzle of honey in your morning porridge or a scrape of jam on your toast, choose the better type of toast and use a scrape. It's not a problem at all. But I will look into that allulose. Thank you, Deb, because I've got to keep up with them. There's so many new sweeteners on the market, and then as soon as there's one, there's another. A lot of people competing, and they always say they're natural, but they still have to go through a lot of processing to be then put in bottles or in sachets. So they're not as natural as what they say, but they can be there for, as I said before, keeping the calories or carbs down. If you like to have your piece of banana and not have that impact on sugars. But again, like I said, just the normal sugars in moderation is not a problem. The low GI honeys and pure maple syrups are easy and cheaper. Some of these sweeteners can be very expensive. Actually, I'm just having a look now. Allulose is a sweetener that tastes like sugar but contains minimal calories and carbs. That's interesting. Okay. So it's a natural occurring sugar found in figs, raisins, wheat, maple syrup, and molasses. I'll read more into it because I'd like to look at the pros and cons. And I did write an article last year about different types of sweeteners. So maybe that's something I can post in the forum. So let me write down sweeteners. It's about natural sweeteners. And I was doing a comparison of all different sweeteners on the market, from monk fruit to stevia, etc., etc. So let me put down allulose and sweeteners. So that's something I can post for everyone after this webinar. See, this is great when we have these Q&As. There's always someone who presents something new for us to all learn about. So that's great. Any other questions or comments? Seeing if there's any more comments. Does anyone use sweeteners or sugars? What's your go-to? What's everyone else's go-to? So I said before, the other thing I've got, for example, when you're looking at how much, of normal sugar can you use for a recipe, the carrot cake muffin recipe I think that's in one of the new meal plans I've done. I use, I think 2 or 3 tablespoons, I think 2 tablespoons of low GI honey or pure maple syrup, and that's it, because I'm using fruit in the recipe. So I've got banana and a few blueberries, and also carrot. Carrot gives that sweet taste. So there's enough natural sweetness from the fruit and veg I use, and I just give a little bit of put a little bit of honey for more sweetness, but I keep it as natural as possible, especially with young ones. I like, to just use natural foods. But again, if you like to use a natural sweetener, not a problem at all. Just, it's the dose that makes the poison. So just be careful with how much. We still don't know a lot about these new sweeteners on the market. Yep. Oh, here we go. Helen, I bought what I thought was pure monk fruit, but on the back of the packet, it was nearly all erythritol. Yep, and 10% monk fruit. Need to read the back of the pack. Oh, Helen, I've done that before. It's so true, isn't it? Like, marketing is very, very clever. And monk fruit, yes, is one of the popular new sweeteners, but it's the same as if you're going for almond milk or oat milk, for example. If you look at the back, it's only a very small percentage of almonds or oats. Yep. So, yeah, always good to read the pack. Yep. Like I said, you can use them, but just be aware, and you don't have to go to all that expense if you're using just normal sugars in moderation. Yep. Other questions?
This is all news to me. I don't know if I'd even heard of erythritol or monk fruit.
Oh, I told you, members are clever. People with diabetes.
Yeah.
Look, allulose. Haven't heard of it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So I'm really keen to. Yeah, members keep me updated. But
Yeah,
I'll,
it's good. Works both ways.
June, what I might do is, you know how I said I've got an article that I've written on the different types of natural sweeteners. What I'll do is I'll edit it and I'll add in allulose, and I'll do a little research on the pros and cons of it, and then I'll post it. That's what I'll do today.
Nice.
Quite curious.
Yeah, hopefully, I imagine that most people who come to these events, if they don't use the forum regularly, then they probably look at the digest emails and everything. So they
Yeah.
Then you can log in once, and then if you save your password, you can click on read more and see
Yes.
all articles and things like that. Even if you're not contributing to, even if you don't want to add a comment to a discussion. I need to look in the forum more myself.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments or questions? Any tips from anyone? Look here. Oh, I missed that. Hang on. There was a comment. Oh, Sophia. Oh, Stuart. I didn't see Stuart. I'm type 2 for past 5 years. Is numbness in feet and lower legs able to be better managed with any specific dietary controls? Oh, thank you. Sorry, Stuart. I didn't even see that
Neither.
at all. Yeah. So numbness in feet and lower legs. Well, first of all, that's something, unless you have already, to review with your GP or endocrinologist. We look at neuropathy, whether that's neuropathy there. Look, it depends on. I'd prefer you to be medically sorted, but magnesium can help with muscle cramping and soreness. It also can help with sleep. It depends on. Stuart, does that happen? Is that occurs always in the day, or is it worse at night? I'm quite curious to know that. So numbness in feet and lower legs. So normally that's, yeah, I'd definitely go and check that out with the doctor, because neuropathy is definitely part of diabetes. And the one thing I can think of is magnesium that can help. Definitely. And you can get magnesium in a supplement. You can get magnesium through the diet. I'll just wait and see if Stuart messages back. So, oh, here we go. Use it all the time, not as a cramp though. Okay, so it's more nerve. I would say, yeah, definitely get it. Speak to your doctor about it. Speak to your doctor about it. Through diet, I don't think that's going to be a magic pill as such, but definitely magnesium can help. Yep, I'm just double checking. Yep, magnesium. I was just doing a little search just to double check. Yep, it helps your nerves to work properly. So like I said, it's not a cure, but magnesium you can find through banana, nuts and seeds, all in your natural foods. So Stuart, yeah, hopefully that helps. But yeah, I definitely, as a medical question and answer first, but magnesium is good, both nerves and muscles. Deb, do you recommend taking electrolytes, especially in the heat? Yeah, look, for some people, thanks for the response. I will follow up as suggested. Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, but just as a note, it does help with nerves and muscles, but anyone with poor sleep, magnesium can really help before bed. To take magnesium, always check with your doctor before taking a supplement, but taking magnesium can really help with better sleep and anxiety. But it also can calm those nerves and muscles down too, but medically checked first, if I've said that enough. But electrolytes, Deb, yeah, look, I would, yes, it depends. So if you're doing a lot of extra exercise and it's very, very hot, I would recommend taking electrolytes, because sometimes you can become a bit dehydrated from all that sweat being released as well. You're going to lose all those electrolytes. So I agree, you can, yes. In the mines, my husband's a miner, FIFO, and they have to take their electrolytes every day, but you can overdo it. So just being careful with that. So maybe on a really hot day when you're more active, you might take an electrolyte drink. I do on hot days when I go, if I'm lucky enough to get to the gym, because I was finding that I was getting really a lot of headaches in the afternoon. And I thought, oh, Rebecca, think about it. And I thought, well, I'm actually expending my body more. I'm losing a lot of sweat. And my diet was enough. So I start taking electrolyte following the gym, and the headaches are gone.
Take this.
So yeah, I would, Deb, and see if you notice the difference, because I noticed the difference myself, because I was walking to the gym. It's very hot in Perth, so walking to the gym, exercising more. And, you know, I have a very healthy, just like, sorry about that. So the, oh my goodness.
That
Dream-
the
dream
facial
child.
expression.
Yeah, so Deb, I would, but just I know you won't overconsume. You're a very sensible lady. I can tell, very knowledgeable. But yeah, they're there for a reason. They really are. And like I said, in the mines, they have them there for the miners. And my husband's seen a few who don't, and they just have too much water. And you can dilute literally your electrolytes and pass out, get headaches. So yeah, they're there for a good reason. I don't like sweet drinks, so I just get like a I get sort of like a plain powder and I mix it in my water, and yeah, headache's gone. Because my lunch, I was refueling after the gym, having a nice healthy lunch, but wasn't enough in the potassium and sodium that you need. Yep. Cheaper if you get it in powder, mix it in water rather than the big drinks.
Yeah, my father-in-law, who's up kind of near Lithgow Mudgee Way, so it can get kind of dry and hot. He loves his powder.
Yep.
What's that common brand? Like the lemon lime one? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Lucozade, I
It's
think,
there.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Electrolytes though. Yeah.
It's gotta be, yeah, Gatorade or Powerade. It really can help, definitely. And I silly me, I just thought, oh, I couldn't work it out. And then I realized you're doing more than usual. And it's all relative. That may not be much for someone else. But yeah, for me, it was the headaches that I had to really manage. Any other question? Oh, gosh, it's been an hour.
Yeah.
And I hope, yeah, guys, this has been informative. Some people are happy to listen and take on any advice, but I love the questions and keep posting, especially in the members forum. I'm not on there most days. And if you want to personally ask questions, you can personally message me as well. There's that functionality. So example, like Deb, send me her diary. Be really curious to work out something. Yeah, for her.
Yeah, great. I don't think I have anything to add. Oh, another question maybe to round it off.
Oh, thank you, Helen, for sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you. And excuse my little 4-year-old. I don't usually give her the phone, only in emergencies, and my husband's away, so this has been an emergency. She's watching Peppa Pig.
Oh no, that's been I've
Dream
enjoyed
of
the extra
blowing
voices.
raspberries.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can all relate. Thanks so much, ladies. Great as usual. Thank you, Deb. I look forward to hearing from you, Deb. Make sure you get back to me. And this is it. These forums always give me ideas of writing articles, and yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, it's great. You win. Yeah, everyone wins. Yeah, it's good.
It's win-win.
Great to have chats. And the meet and greets with new members and current members. I've got the first one that I'll be hosting or just being there for, maybe next week or the week after. So that'll be interesting to see. Very casual.
Good. Should be casual. It's good.
Yeah, just having a chat. All right, well, might leave it there. As I said earlier, probably won't put this on the forum, or in the newsletter, but I just recorded it anyway in case we do. But thanks everyone for coming along. I've learned a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
And I'll like I said, those things, the comparison of the natural sweeteners, I will edit it and put allulose in there after I do a little research. Yeah, so I'll do that for everyone.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks, Beck.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll see you soon. See you guys. Have a
Thanks,
good
everyone. Have a good week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.